I'm Stephanie DaCosta, and I am a skin specialist from Paul Mitchell Advanced Education. I'm here today giving you an example of our Level 1 hair removal certification. We're going to start today with our video. Okay, so I'm going to stop that video right now, and I just want to ask how many of you have done the do-it-yourself at-home hair removal? I'm sure lots of us have tried different methods, whether it's tweezing, at-home wax kits, different types of creams that will dissolve that hair. We're going to really get in and talk about all the different types of hair removal that is, and it's really good to get an idea that even our clients and our guests at home are doing those services. So we're going to learn the history of hair removal today, and we are going to get a lot of information about hair removal. We want to understand this topic really thoroughly before we can get our hands sticky in wax, so to speak. So I'm going to have everybody take out notes. We are going to go through a keynote presentation. If you have your iPads, you can also open up in Notability and fill in the extra information in your Notability. And we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to go through different types of hair removal, and we will also revisit a very long history of hair removal that dates back all the way to ancient times. We're going to talk about how the hair grows. We did get a little bit of theory as far as how the hair shaft grows in the skin with our Milady textbook, but today we're going to focus on how it grows and what's happening when we are performing hair removal services for our guests. We are then, and I know everybody's so excited, but we're actually going to get our first opportunity to touch the wax, maybe get a little sticky today, and just figure out the two different types of wax. All right. So, starting with the two types of hair removal. So we have both temporary and permanent hair removal. We're going to look at temporary first. So there are two types of temporary hair removal. Remember, temporary means that we will have to come back and remove that hair again. So it is going to regrow, whether we remove it from the surface of the skin or if we are actually detaching it from the papilla. Okay, two definitions that you need to know. So depilation, that is the removal of the hair at or near the surface of the skin. So who can tell me the most popular means of depilation? Perfect. Shaving. Okay, we all do it. We shave at home. Men shave at home, and it is still today the most popular method of hair removal. Also, depilation could be using a cream, and we know that there are caustic preparations that you can apply to an area of the body that has unwanted hair, and that caustic preparation will actually dissolve the hair chemically, and then you just wipe it away. Unfortunately, that can leave the skin irritated, and it does unbalance the pH a little bit, leaving it in that alkaline state. So epilation, on the other hand, is removing the hair by breaking contact between the bulb and the papilla. So again, we remember from our Milady theory how that hair grows in the skin. We know that it is being fed by looped capillaries, and that is how a new hair is formed. So with epilation, we are actually removing the whole hair shaft from that follicle opening in the skin. So we do know that it is an invasive procedure. We can draw blood, so there will be contraindications, and means to be safe and sanitary through those services. The other type of hair removal is permanent methods. So there are two distinguishments in permanent hair removal, and that is that one is permanent hair reduction, and that is laser technology. The FDA has only deemed laser to be permanent hair reduction, not permanent hair removal. They cannot guarantee that that papilla is being destroyed with the laser. On the other hand, we know that electrolysis is deemed permanent hair removal. So with that electrical current, again, remembering a little bit of our theory from electricity and our theory from hair removal, that they use that galvanic current or that thermolysis blend to coagulate that papilla in the follicle, and it destroys any means of regrowth for that hair. I wanted to take you down a little bit of a long history of hair removal, similar to the video, but I wanted to date back all the way to ancient times and talk about how this has been something that people have sought after for years and years and years. So in the Egyptian time, people created tweezers. They took seashells and used seashells to tweeze out unwanted hair from their body. They also used pumice stones, like you saw in the video. That had to have been very painful, but to just rub away hair from their body. Threading actually originated around that same time, about 2000 BC, and that was originally practiced in Persia. Years later, in the Roman Empire, a lack of body hair was actually a sign of wealth. So people had to remove hair by any means necessary. They were creating razors from flints. They were still using tweezers made from seashells. They were creating creams, and they were using different stones to rub away hair. In the Middle Ages, Queen Elizabeth, to continue with a little history, during that time, a very large forehead was considered a sign of wealth. And she would soak bandages in walnut oil and ammonia and vinegar and lay those bandages or wrap those bandages around her hair, and it would start to dissolve hair at the hairline, exposing a larger hairline. In 1760, Jean-Jacques Perret, he was a French barber, and he created that very first straight razor. In 1844, Dr. Gourand, he created the first depilatory cream, and it was called Poudre Subtile. In 1880, King Camp Gillette, and we all know that Gillette name still through today, he created the first modern-day razor, and it wasn't for 3 decades later that one was marketed for women. It's a really cool picture on that slide, actually. I love that original razor. In 1940, Remington released the first electric razor. So you can see an ad there from all the different electric razors, and it was a fad to have hairless legs. In 1950, women relied on razors to shave their legs and tweezers to shape their brows. 1960, there was actually a fabric that made its debut to remove wax that was being created at home using beeswax and honey. In 1996, a man named Rox Anderson discovered possible ways to target and damage those basal stem cells, and that was the first laser that was created. And 1 year later, the FDA actually deemed it as permanent hair reduction. In 1970, electrolysis became more reliable and a safe method for hair removal. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is I have the class divided into two groups. There's poster papers out for both groups. You're going to create a timeline that will be up on the wall for the next few weeks as we study hair removal. And across that timeline, I want you to use the notes that you took from the slides, and you can also use Google, you can use any sort of research materials, but I want you to label across that timeline all the different types of hair removal and how it's grown, dating back to ancient cultures. The one thing I would like for you to add in your timeline activity is I want you to denote whether it is depilation, epilation, electrolysis or permanent hair removal, or laser. So along that timeline, that should also be defined as well. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. All right, so did we have any discoveries in that timeline activity? Did anybody find anything that was really exciting? Yeah, you found the Epilady? Oh yeah, I remember that. It was an awful machine that was very painful, and people bought that and were trying to do hair removal services at home. So as skin therapists, it's important for us to understand just how sought after this service is, and truly people want their bodies hair free, they want their brows shaped, they aren't comfortable with maybe the hair that grows on their upper lip or the hair that's growing in on the chin, especially as women age. So how profitable this service is really important, and also to understand and be able to educate your guest about how the hair grows when you're removing it for them. So let's talk about different types of hair on the body. Some of you remember that lanugo hair. This is the hair that a fetus is born with. Oftentimes the fetus is covered head to toe with this very soft and downy hair. As the baby grows up, that hair does fall out, and it's replaced by either vellus hair or terminal hair. Both actually we will work on with hair removal. So vellus hair, to define, vellus hair is very fine, it's soft, it generally is lacking any pigment. It grows on the sides of our cheeks, it grows on the inside of our arm. Actually, everywhere on our body that does not have terminal hair does have vellus hair, and it is considered hair that people do want removed from their body. Terminal hair is that pigmented, longer, coarse hair, obviously found on the head, found on our brows, our lashes, genital area, arms, legs. Big service opportunity with your guests, removing that terminal hair, that unwanted hair. How does that hair grow? So some of you can remember that there are 3 stages of hair growth. And this is a very important concept to understand when explaining to your guest about a smooth skin after a hair removal service. Some of you may have had your legs waxed, and that very first wax, you grew your hair out for 4 weeks, you're so excited, you get waxed, and it doesn't quite feel like it does when you shaved your legs. So we're going to understand a little bit why that is and be able to explain that to our guests who will have those same questions. So in the anagen stage, this is where the hair is growing. So it is being formed in the papilla, down low, close to the dermis. It's being fed by those looped capillaries, that blood nourishment, and that new hair is forming. It is growing in length, and it is reaching towards the surface of the skin. Once it gets to its full length, okay, and remember our arms have a length that they will grow, our leg hair will have a length that they will grow, same even with the terminal hair that's on our head. It is designed by our DNA and it'll grow to a certain length. So when that hair reaches that length, it will transition into the catagen stage. So we do call this the transition stage. This is the shortest stage time-wise that the hair will live in. This is where the hair detaches from the papilla. It will no longer be nourished by the blood capillary network, and it is going to be traveling into that next stage called telogen. In the telogen stage, this is the final stage of hair growth. It actually is grown to its full length. It's sitting and resting in the follicle. It is ready to shed. So oftentimes that means it isn't going to fall out of the follicle that day that it moves into that telogen stage. It is still sitting in the follicle. It still has a bulb, which is larger than that follicle opening. That's why tweezing hair can still be painful. And it's sitting and it's resting there. At that same time that a hair is in telogen stage, a new hair could be fed by that dermal papilla and growing. So you could have two hairs in that same follicle, one being in an anagen stage and one being in a telogen stage. So the hairs that we remove when we perform hair removal, epilation in the service room, we are generally removing those telogen hairs. And that is why you don't always have that smooth skin initially after that first waxing service. So if you can imagine, and I like to actually use this picture to depict, but if you can imagine your guest coming in and they grew out their hair for 4 weeks. They're going to come in, this is the surface of their skin. You're going to take your wax stick, right? Get some wax on there. You're going to perform some hair removal. You're going to spread that wax across that skin, and then you would remove it. What you would notice is this follicle right here may have a little bit of hair reaching that skin surface that next day. This hair just transitioning out of the first stage of hair growth in that catagen stage, that may not be long enough to be removed that day in that service. It may be less than half an inch, and it may stay there. So what you need to explain to your guests is that frequent appointments are necessary for that smooth, I just shaved my skin feeling. It usually takes about 4 continued appointments every 4 weeks. What happens is when you remove a hair from the follicle, a new hair will start growing in that anagen stage. So we're creating a cycle where all of our hairs will be growing together on the same stage and eventually getting to that place where our guest doesn't feel any stubble after a full leg wax hair removal service. Okay, so we want to commit those terms to memory, and we want to have a fun way to do that. I have a crossword puzzle for everybody, and it's very simple. It does just cover the terms we talked about, the 3 stages of hair growth. It also covers the different types of hair, and I'm going to let you work with partners, and you guys are going to complete that crossword puzzle, and that will help you commit this terminology to memory so that you can speak about it in a professional way with your guests. So I'll give you time to do that. All right, so now it's time to dive into the wax. Now this is your very first introduction to wax. Okay, we're going to keep it pretty simple today. We're going to talk about the two different types of wax that there is. Now we have a soft wax and we have hard wax. Within those two types of wax, there are many different makers of wax, many different ingredients that can go into it. Some maybe having chamomile for a soothing after wax feel. Some have tea tree for those skins that need that antiseptic ingredient in the wax. Okay, today what I want to focus on is just the difference between the two different waxes. So soft wax, generally it is derived from different types of resins, beeswax, honey. Again, like I said, additives can be added like chamomile, azulene, tea tree. We use the soft wax on all the areas of the body. So soft wax is applicable on the brows, on the upper lip, the cheek, the chin, even the body. Now, within soft wax, sometimes you will find some of them as a cream wax. What distinguishes soft from hard is that a soft wax needs a pelin or a muslin strip to remove. So I'm just going to briefly demonstrate just an application of a soft wax application. Now this is a cream wax that I am using, but soft wax in its definition needs this fabric strip to actually remove the wax from the skin. So we will talk about technique, we will talk about direction, we'll talk about holding the skin appropriately, all of that once we really understand the basics of our wax and the different types. Today I just want you to focus on understanding that there is a soft wax that needs a fabric strip to be removed and that there is a hard wax. Now, hard wax is a unique wax in and of itself. It generally comes in pellets or little beads, and you would put those into your wax heater. It has a higher melting point, but you actually want this wax to be thicker. So your application with hard wax is going to be completely different than it would be with soft wax. When I applied my soft wax to my skin, you can remember that you saw me apply it in a very thin layer. You could see my skin through that wax. With hard wax, on the other hand, we want it applied in a very thick layer. Hard wax is different. It's applied thicker, like I said, and it is not going to adhere to the skin the same way as the soft wax does. So I'm going to apply a small amount of hard wax on a part of my arm that actually has some terminal hair, and you'll notice I want to have it be thicker, almost the thickness of a needle. And what's really unique about a hard wax, and oftentimes very sought after by our guests, is that it doesn't adhere to the skin. So how does it remove the hair if it doesn't adhere to the skin? Once you put it on, it shrink wraps around each individual hair that it is applied over. So the result on the skin is generally less redness, less irritation. It can, however, leave behind some hairs. If you have an area where there's a lot of vellus, very soft hair like we talked about, the hard wax could leave that behind, which could be great for a natural look on the cheeks. Now, I don't need a fabric piece to remove my hard wax. What's great is now I can touch this. It's not sticking to me at all. It's completely hardened. I am going to create a gripping edge just with my fingertips, and then I can remove that wax. And you would be able to see that from that section of my arm, I have the hairs that were removed in that wax. So as a recap, soft wax is going to remove all the hair in the areas that you place it. Vellus, terminal, everything. Hard wax, on the other hand, could leave a natural looking vellus hair behind, which could be great for facial waxing. It's great on the brows. We also stick to hard wax in the genital area so that we don't have to irritate the skin using that soft wax and having that soft wax adhere to the skin that could cause lifting. And it's much easier because you do not have to then bond a fabric strip, and you can just lift the wax right off for that service. So let's recap a little. I want you to be able to come and play with the wax. So I'm going to distribute to each of you a few sticks, a few pieces of the Pellin or the muslin fabric that you'll be using. And just like I did, we're not going to be waxing our brows today or our lip. We're just going to be spreading a little bit of wax on our inner arm, and then we can use that hard wax on the other side of the arm just to get a little bit more hair to remove so you guys can see how it works. And I want you guys to play with it. I'm going to come around, I'm going to adjust your application because we haven't really dove into that just yet. But I want you guys to have some fun and get excited because tomorrow we're going to really start on the application of wax, and we're going to start facial waxing. So let's do that. All right. How was that for everybody? Did everybody enjoy getting sticky with the wax? Good. Well, it's really fun, and it's, again, such a profitable service for the guests. And we're just going to take a minute. I want you guys to do a quick learning map on hair removal being your center subject. And once you've done that, I want you to partner up with your learning partner, and I want you to share your favorite thing that you learned today, whether it was something about the history of hair removal or even about how our hair grows. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so it looks like some of you did have some questions from our question board. I like this one. It says, why are there still hairs on my legs after I've had them waxed? So what a great review. Is there anybody in the class that can answer this question for them? Because it is something that I went over. Okay, perfect. Yes, just like I said. So there's different stages of hair growth, and some follicles could have a hair in the catagen stage coming to that telogen stage, and that the next day there might be that small amount of stubble. So excellent. I'm so glad you could help your classmate with that. How will I remove wax if I get it into somebody's hair? Yes, that's a fear for sure that some of you will have. And we will talk about post-wax applications. Oil is going to remove wax. I don't want anybody to be fearful about that as we move forward. And we will be able to solve that question in the coming lessons. What if I have breakouts on my brows, but I want them waxed? That's a great question too. We know that a breakout is a contraindication to waxing. So we could opt to tweeze, or we can really look at the brow, and if it's one, we would just wax to that breakout, lift our stick, and continue waxing. So really great questions. I know you guys are really excited to really dive in more in hair removal. And I just am excited to do that with you. So thank you, and we're done.